I'm going to call the meeting to order. The first item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes. Does someone motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
All those in favor of approving the minutes?
Aye.
Thank you. Board member comments. We're going to start with Amanda. She has an update on this never-ending subject.
Yeah, just a little clarification on the new policy, the FOIA policy for electronic participation. When you know you're going to be absent from the meeting and you want to participate remotely, you have to identify the reason. There's those 4 categories. It can be a personal matter, it's an illness or a disability or family's disability, or you live outside of 60 miles away. For personal matter, it does, the rules require you to provide some specificity, and personal matters are subject to that limitation of 2 per calendar year or 25% of the meetings, whichever is greater. But for that specificity, it's enough to say, I'm out of town, I'm traveling for business, personal reasons, just to have something for Jewel to put in her notes and reflect in the minutes to be in compliant with the law.
So business travel,
Mm-hmm.
it counts as one of the 2, a 2.
Yeah.
Part of them are the 2. Okay.
Yeah, so that would be a personal matter, considered a personal matter, since it doesn't fit into the other 3 categories.
And the other categories are illness.
Illness, disability, personal disability or family disability, and then living more than 60 miles away from the location of the meeting.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Got it.
Thank you for that update.
Mr. Kobus has a question.
Mr. Kobelis?
Yeah, just to clarify, it starts over on January 1st, correct?
Correct.
Okay. All right. Board member comments. Mr. Campbell?
I get to go first since you're not here, Mark. Yeah, the only thing I'll say, I went to the Fairfax Water, what would they call the thing? Summit, that's right, the summit. Went there with Marty, and Mark and Alton were there too, which was great. Alton introduced me to Lisa, yeah, Lisa with COG, and so we had some good talks about PFAS and all that. Evidently, she's way into that also, so it was great to get her thoughts. And while we were at the meeting, Jamie Hedges, who's the GM of Fairfax Water, gave a little shout out to Marty for designing the building, and that was fun. But anyhow, yeah, it was a great time. I enjoyed being able to go, and that's my only comment.
Thank you. Bill?
No comments, sir.
Jim?
Just a brief comment. I'm really happy to see all the work going on and things moving forward on the Reservoir Park. It's a big project, as well as the other 2 large projects we have, both here at Broad Run and the Quarry project. So it's exciting to have those moving along.
Thank you. Mr. Moody?
Yes, we had a really interesting CIP meeting, which I hope we'll hear more about today, about the landfill pretreatment study. I think Kendra, was it, who gave the presentation, heard a lot about PFAS, and I keep hearing it echoed over and over again. So this last one was really informative, and I really understood a lot what was going on, so it was really appreciated.
Great, thanks. Angeline?
I just want to start by saying thank you, everybody at the back, for being here. Thank you, everybody on the table here. And always, thank you so much to all the staff at Land and Water, and the projects that we decide on and we make decisions on. It's all the people that we don't see every day at Land and Water is the ones I'm greatly thankful for. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Angeline. Chairman Kobelis?
Nothing for me, thanks.
Okay. Marty? Surprised they let you into the meeting, but
No, at the meeting, I met a lot of people that I knew from Fairfax. It was nice of Jamie to kind of lie about me, but that was okay. One One thing you did that Brent didn't mention was the reception ahead of the meeting was very well attended and the food was excellent. And from what I understand, there were 85 people at the conference. And I had one other thought. They called it a summit. To me, a summit is when higher echelon gets together and decides something, even if it's decided ahead of time, and they come out with a conclusion. This was more of a review of Fairfax Water, what they've done in the past and where they're going and some, local regional issues. So it was a good meeting, but I don't think, I think the name summit was a little, maybe not right. But like I say, the food was excellent, right, Alton?
Thanks,
That's it.
Marty. Mr. Kelly?
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. Thanks to Brent and Marty for attending. And Marty, thank you for the notes on that. It was very informative. Appreciate you putting that together. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. And yeah, I'll echo what Mr. Kelly just said, that I appreciate you guys going and representing the board when others could not make it. And I appreciate you doing the thoughts that you put together. It was a real concise. I felt like I was there by reading that. So thank you very much. General Manager's report, Carla.
Yes, thank you. I have quite a few things to mention to you today. As Mr. Bonfils mentioned, construction is underway, Reservoir Park. So with that construction comes some new rules for water access. So the drawdown of the water level to facilitate construction started October 1st. And actually water access will be closed October 17th. Trails near the southeast portion of the reservoir will also be closed during construction. And those restricted areas will, of course, be well marked for visitor safety by our contractor. As a reminder, substantial completion is projected for the first quarter of 2024, with a grand opening spring or summer of 2024. And progress on the park will be on the Loudon Water and Nova Parks web pages. Our business solutions and customer relations teams successfully launched the newest version of our customer portal, which we refer to as LW Connect. Our customers spoke and we listened by providing new features that will enable customers to monitor their water usage more closely. Enhancements include tools to monitor quarterly, monthly, weekly, and daily usage. In addition, customers will be able to compare their quarterly usage to the same time last year to really look for trends. For example, their irrigation usage. And also new program enrollments section will provide a central area for our customers to effortlessly enroll in programs to include e-billing, auto debit, text alerts, and usage alerts. Last week, we celebrated Customer Service Week here at Loudon Water. It is actually a national event established in 1984 and proclaimed a national event by Congress in 1992. That this week is devoted to recognize the importance of customer service and to honoring the people who serve and support our customers with the highest degree of care and professionalism. At Loudon Water, we take great pride in our top-notch customer service throughout the entire organization. And so I just want to send out a special thanks to our customer relations team for their fantastic work every day. It's been a busy few weeks for Loudon Water staff as well, as we participated in a number of community fall festivals. We were at the Claude-Moore Parks Fall Festival in September, and this was the first time we were at this event, which featured over 800 visitors and local families. We also participated in the Children's Science Center Champions celebration last weekend, which recognizes Children's Science Center volunteers and corporate champions who assist the Science Center in inspiring thousands of children and young adults in our community. We also participated in Sterling Fest and the Cascades Fall Festival, both on October 8th. Additionally, we've hosted 9 apiary tours serving 146 students and provided 7 in-school Enviroscape presentations, serving 584 students. So very busy time for our employees as we participate in these community events. The next upcoming event is October 22nd, which will be the Brambleton Bram Festival. So come out and see us there. As previously mentioned, Chair Randall of the Board of Supervisors has asked that we offer each of the Board of Supervisors the same educational presentation on PFAS that we provided to her in late August, as well as a tour of Trap Rock. And so we are scheduled to provide a tour to Supervisors Turner and Glass on November 2nd, and Supervisors Kirchner and Umstead on November 3rd. And a final note, National Drug Take Back Day is Saturday, October 29th. As we all know, medication that is flushed down the toilet can impact the health of fish and other wildlife. And most medicines are not completely destroyed or removed by the wastewater treatment processes. For our local disposal locations, all disposal locations are available on the Drug Enforcement Administration's webpage. ERCs through September totaled 1,527. If you'll recall, our original projection for the year was 2,534, which was revised down with our mid-year review to 2,144. So we're about 70% of our revised projection through September. Couple reminders on your upcoming meetings. The CIP committee will meet on Wednesday, October 26th at 8 a.m. Finance committee will meet on Thursday, October 27th at 8 a.m. And the Water Resources Committee will meet on Tuesday, November 1st at 8 a.m. Thank you.
Thank you, Carla.
Chairman, or Vice Chairman, Acting Chairman, I don't know, what would you call you?
That's
during the
fine.
meeting? One quick question. So at the Fairfax Water Summit, one of the key speakers there was from Virginia Tech, and it was on the Occoquan watershed and the Occoquan River. And it was one of the interesting things there is that I guess the county partnered some time ago with Virginia Tech to monitor the Occoquan and provide sort of independent third-party analysis of the health of the stream, recommendations for what could be done, things like that. And I thought, are we doing anything like that at the Goose Creek? Obviously, Occoquan's big, so's Goose. It extends multiple counties and so forth. I thought, is there any similar thing happening that you all know of it here in Loudon?
Yeah, Mr. Campbell, we are partnered with the Occoquan Watershed Monitoring Laboratory, which is facilitated through Virginia Tech. I know off the top of my head of monitoring that's conducted here in Broad Run associated with our treatment plant. Pam, I'm not sure. Are there others you're aware of?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
To compare it to what?
No.
So we.
Yeah, we're constantly exploring that partnership further, but that's been our principal endeavor thus far.
Okay, cool. But at the moment, there's nothing being done in terms of like an independent person for or a university for the Goose Creek. We're doing the Broad Run. We have some testing there, but we're not aware of anything on the Goose Creek. I know there's some testing and monitoring there, but it's not like a university. It's just the county or.
And we do monitoring
we
there.
monitor
Yes,
too.
absolutely. Our laboratory. So just haven't gotten to that level with Occoquan Lab.
Cool. Oh, thank you.
Jewel, do we have anyone signed up for public comment?
No, sir, we do not.
Okay, thank you. Onto the agenda. You need a motion to adopt the agenda.
Motion to accept the agenda.
Okay.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Board committee action. Marty, CIP?
You want my report?
Please.
Yeah, okay. First of all, I have to commend Kendra for giving a presentation on PFAS. Like Keith said too, if she got through to us, she must have been doing a really good job, and she did. We understand it. Anyway, the first item is an award of a BOA task order to CDM Smith for landfill leachate pre-treatment study by Kendra. Wastewater treatment plants don't generate PFAS, but are passive receivers of PFAS through the wastewater collected from homes, commercial businesses, and industries. One of the things I would add is that I was surprised by the amount of PFAS percentage-wise just that landfill donates to the system. I don't remember the number, but it was higher than I thought. Loudoun Water's current planning for PFAS reduction involves 3 areas: point source reduction, liquid treatment technologies, and solid treatment technologies. The study that's involved here is to study point source reduction from PFAS at the Loudoun County Landfill Leachate Pump Station. Staff selected CDM Smith to perform the work, and they selected CDM Smith because of their research on this very subject. CIP committee recommended approval of a design task order to CDM Smith for an estimated cost of $305,800, with approximate 5% contingency to be controlled by the general manager for a total authorized budget of $321,100. I believe that Kendra's going to give a similar presentation to this meeting, which would be good. And the other thing is, staff should be complimented on the forward thinking that they're moving ahead with this without waiting for trouble, which is that to be commended. The next item was an information item on the Paragon Park transmission main interconnect bid analysis. And what came out of that is that any future project where the estimate is way below the bid amount will certainly be questioned by the board. I think a free ride is over on that situation. Savita went through various factors that are involved with the bid analysis, and it was a good presentation. And the last thing was the Broad Run Reclamation Facility Phase 3 expansion update by Kendra. And this basically was the planning phase of the program is nearing completion, and the presentation was provided to update the CIP committee regarding key decisions that were made. The planning evaluation determined that a 15 MGD expansion that increases the treatment capacity of Broad Run to 30 MGD will be required to position Loudoun Water to provide sufficient wastewater treatment capacity moving forward. Based on the outcome of Phase 3 program planning, the budget for the program is estimated to be $650 million, spanning the next 15 years. Given the magnitude of this, the committee requested that this informational item be presented to the full board, which I believe is going to be done. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Marty. There's nothing on the consent agenda. And there's one action item, Kendra.
All right. So this is a reduced version of the presentation because I took up maybe an hour and a half of the CIP committee meeting when we did this the first time around. So to get started on this specific task order, we wanted to take a larger view and use this as another time to update the board on how specifically focused on the wastewater side of Loudoun Water, that we are focusing on PFAS and addressing these concerns. So as Marty mentioned in his summary, we've got 3 main categories that we can focus on the wastewater side to reduce PFAS passing through the treatment plant and entering the environment. So number 1 is point source, and this is the first area that every utility is and should be focusing on to reduce what is coming to the treatment plant first. Then looking at, you have to have 2 different removal streams. You have to focus on removing what is in the liquid stream, but also in the solid stream, and these are not the same technologies. So We are working on all three of these. So the phase 3 expansion of Broad Run is looking at and planning for items 2 and 3. The task order today is going to focus more on 1, but on all 3 of these targets, just the state of the industry and knowledge that we're at is understanding what level of achievement, what level of removal can actually be achieved with the technologies that we have at date, and estimating the costs. So in each of the categories, really our main point source contributor to Broad Run is the landfill. And I do not want to negate that a major task here is just sampling and analyzing PFAS in itself. We are absolutely leading the way in this right now at the level of analysis that we're attempting to do. The national laboratories, we're helping them perfect their methods to get better analysis to us. So this in itself is a huge undertaking in just better analyzing and understanding it. And it's feeding in to all the great work that we then do in the processes. So under the point source reduction, we're going to talk about a lot the difficulties with leachate, but just focusing on sampling the leachate and understanding what's there, and then completing the pretreatment study that we will talk about today. But on the liquids and biosolids side, we're really lucky that Broad Run already has granular activated carbon. So when we start talking about phase 3 and some of the contracts that will come out of that larger program, the goal there is to learn how to optimize what we have and figure out how we can advance that further to get the most out of the equipment that's installed. This is also key for the industry. Very few plants have this. So what we learn and figure out, other people can apply as they start moving in that same direction. And then on the biosolids side, we're making a change in our solids processing technology that will not only enhance the biosolids product that we're distributing, but will position us for the most likely form of biosolids treatment right now, which is pyrolysis. And the goal in the phase 3 is to continue to study that and understand what the next step in pyrolysis treatment would be. Today, we're going to focus on the landfill leachate pretreatment study. So today we're bringing forward a task order so that we can look at the leachate and determine those 2 main goals of what can be removed and how cost effective it is. But there was some chatter as we got started here. I wanted to talk first about what leachate is from a landfill. So this is just a generic structure of a landfill, but is similar to the way the county's landfill was constructed. But there is a clay liner in the bottom of the landfill that's protecting any rain that hits the open surface of the landfill, which is then contaminated by all the household waste that's been thrown away. But you want to collect that so that you don't contaminate groundwater underneath. But once it's collected, it needs somewhere to go. So you have a perforated pipe that sits above the liner that starts collecting what we're going to call leachate. This is a small flow stream, but highly contaminated. It's got large quantities of carbon. You can get metals in there. It's got PFAS from all the household waste that's being disposed of, but it's a very complex water matrices that really challenges not only the treatment technologies that we can use, but again, the analysis methods to get good data on what is actually in there. But the amount of leachate generated from any landfill is unique for that landfill based on the type of material that they've accepted over time, how much of that landfill is open. So they do eventually, once it is complete and as full as it's going to be, start capping it. So then you don't have, once it's capped and closed, you might have slight leakage, but you don't have the open rainwater going through. But that means what is required to be treated is really subject to what cells might be open at any given time versus what the long-term plans are. So it's highly involved analysis between landfill operations and then the water generated from that. So I wanted to put this out just to demonstrate this is some initial analysis on the leachate from our landfill and the main PFAS that we're seeing and the levels of concentrations being found. So it is a small flow but highly concentrated source, which is ideal for treatment. To remove this PFAS here, which is about 7,000 gallons a day before it enters the 8 million gallons going to Broad Run. So it's easier to remove when we're in a concentrated form.
Could you
mentioned the percentage of PFAS that comes from here versus what ends up at the plant. Do you remember?
Absolutely. So it is a moving target as we look at, well, what are PFAS precursors that are converting? But it looks like right now it's around 20% of the PFAS load into the treatment plant is coming from this one source.
Wow.
So if we can remove this here, we're making a big dent in the total PFAS entering the facility. We've got several PFAS sampling campaigns underway, some to really target just household domestic waste to see what's coming just from homes to give us a better idea of what's from a source that we can't control versus these others. We're also advancing our analysis. So what you see here are a standard list of PFAS, and this was tested in 23, looking for 23 target analytes. We're expanding that to the precursors. So once you oxidize it and see what it turns into, and also looking at the total organic fluorine that is in this so that we can better understand things that aren't measured may also be entering Broad Run and getting converted into kinds that we can then measure later. So that's where this number will keep moving around. However, this specific study is also going to help us target a lot of this better. So main goals are what types of PFAS can be removed. Each of these analytes are removed in a different way. So we call PFAS a big family, but they're different forms of acids. You have long chain PFAS, short chain PFAS. Some technologies are going to be able to remove some, definitely not all. So we need to know which one of these we can remove, how much of them can be removed. Are we looking at only being able to remove 50%, or can we get to 99%? And then estimating capital costs is critical to know how this is going to compare to removing it at Broad Run. And when we say costs, we want to know the cost of the removal technology, but also the final disposal of that PFAS. We're just taking it out of the leachate and putting it in a more concentrated form now. So that's the importance of this study, is getting an overall value on the operation. So as was mentioned, we've selected CDM Smith for this task order. They've been a leader nationwide in PFAS in specific and communication strategies, but they have focused on leachate treatment. They have bench scale technologies that they can run the leachate through directly, which is the second part of the scope here, but what is really critical. So we could do a small paper study and say, we think we can remove some of this PFAS, but leachate is hard. It's a complex matrices. So the important part of this is we're going to ship leachate to their lab. They're going to test this specific stream and tell us which technologies work better and give us a much more sound idea than just trying to do a literature review and do state of where we are. Because if we're going to, make capital decisions based on this, we need to be testing the exact leachate that we've got. So in addition to the bench scale testing, there will be the paper study. And this is important because we need to understand what I was discussing in variabilities of flows and stuff from the leachate pump station, so that when we're sizing it, we're not only sizing it for the leachate we have now, but the leachate in the future. I think another question that was asked was the lifetime of this landfill. They are projecting it past 2070. So we want to look at all phases of operations and how these flows might change over time. Then we will get some alternative screening. They will develop site layouts so that we can get the good capital costs, know how much land it's going to take, and those disposal costs will be included, but also a roadmap for implementation. We are on the bleeding edge here with this, and we're moving in advance of regulations setting specific limits. So the roadmap will really help us identify, if you proceed now, what concerns, what should you be looking for? What are the steps it would take to get it there? Because this is going to be a long-term partnership, right, between Loudoun Water and the county in moving forward. And so this will be a great document for us all to understand what this pretreatment is really going to mean. So this is our schedule for this.
Wait, sorry, go back. I just want to stay with you. So if I have a question, I will ask on this slide before you go to the next slide, right? Fair to you and to all of us. So last time we were here at the CIP meeting, I asked about the CDM Smith lab in Bellevue, Washington.
Yes.
what I would like is, I would like to know the cost of that, to send that. And we talked about this. I mean, I had asked you about the cost, and I asked you why we're sending it over there. Why not we keeping it local? And you did mention that,
Mhm.
right? I'm not gonna have you repeat that. But I'm sitting on the board, cost is, it's utmost important to me. That's one of my, fiduciary responsibilities. So I would like to know the cost. And then obviously, I presume you would share the study with the board.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
But so the task order costs we have are to perform the work. The shipping costs themselves, we would just pay that directly. And we've gotten a couple of estimates from freighting companies ranging from $2,000 to $3,000.
Okay, right. That was just the key piece that was missing last time. So I wanted to take this opportunity to ask you. Thank you, Kendra. Please carry on.
We were like a little bit how to like, okay, we're gonna ship 600 gallons of leachate. Like, how does this work? But our warehouse group, they were like, oh, we're on it. We got some pallets, we got some drums, we're gonna wrap them up. So we had a very sound plan.
Why such a large sample size? I mean,
Yeah, so we got more into the treatment technologies in the CIP meeting, but it will likely be, you can't just use one technology. It's going to need a pre-treatment step, which we get into repeating pre-treatment. So it's going to be several runs saying, if we do just this, what did we get? Okay, now let's try some coagulant ahead and see what happens. And they're going to have to do that with each technology.
Okay.
So it's an extensive number of analysis that they.
and then can you just review, you said 7,000 gallons of leachate come from the landfill and it mixed with the 80,000 gallons from Broad Run, is that?
8 million gallons,
8 million
right, is how
gallons,
much is
alright.
entering Broad Run. Another key number in that though is that's the average day. When it rains, that can jump up to 160,000 gallons a day.
The leachate?
Mhm.
Okay.
And so it's got a real high peaking factor on it yet. And so the wonderful staff that we have collecting these PFAS samples, they're currently monitoring rain and saying, okay, when can I go out there to get a sample of this while it's raining so that we can figure out. Traditionally in wastewater, you say once it starts raining, things get more dilute, but that doesn't always apply to leachate because now you have more water in contact with the material that is leaching it. So we could run into a situation where when it rains, we're seeing more PFAS come in. So it's not, you can't use the traditional assumptions. So there will be extensive efforts over the next 6 months to try and monitor that specifically as we're seeing peak rains come through.
Great, thanks.
Andrew, one quick more question. Is there a containment at the landfill? So you get that big influx, there's a rain event. Is there a containment there to just hold some of it at least so that we're not getting the full impact of that 160,000 gallons?
Yeah, not right now. But this study is really going to point to that, right? Because if we think about the treatment technology, it's going to be much more affordable to buy something that treats that steady 7,000 gallons and not have to size it up to treat 160,000 gallons. So this, I just already tell you, it's going to be one of the key recommendations come out of that. I think the landfill is going to say the challenge is going to be available space to do that. So that's what we will challenge our consulting firm with is where on the available site can we fit this? And that honestly is a great benefit to the collection system as well, so that downstream pump stations don't take that peak. It helps overall.
It's so logical.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're currently estimating about a 9-month schedule here, and we've shown a general breakdown of, there's the parallel path. So we'll just send the leachate. Like I said, we've got the plan right now to get that shipped, and they'll work on that bench scale testing while doing their paper evaluations of sizing and getting costs and things. Really our big unknown in these testing bars is the PFAS analysis. So what we're seeing is as this becomes more and more of a hot topic, it is taking us longer and longer to get the data back from the labs. But as Mr. Sarkar mentioned, we're shipping this to Bellevue, Washington. It's actually opening up a new range of labs that we're excited to start working with to not only get a couple of extra data points, but to see how processing speeds might vary. So we're taking advantage of that physical difference with the labs we're currently working on. Now it can take, up to 3 months to get data back from the samples you've sent in. So it's just an unknown in our schedule.
Hey,
And
Kendra,
Mhm.
so you said we were bleeding edge, and I think that's great. But we won't be, this is going to grow. Other water, I mean, this is going to keep happening. If it keeps happening and we actually figure out how to do this, and we actually can remove a meaningful amount of PFAS,
Mhm.
it seems like where's it go is going to become a really big, that all this technology that you're talking about is, it's what we should be talking about. But at some point, if we're successful, what do you do with it? Is that something that is,
it is currently being looked at. So the destruction of PFAS is not part of this study. And no, so this is just focused on removal. PFAS destruction is not even really at the bench scale. So it's more at the academic scale. And so what was mentioned at the last board meeting, I believe, was that Northwestern article, right? That talked about a new way to destroy PFAS. We're at that level where it is academics in a lab evaluating specific types and ways. There are facilities right now that are taking PFAS for destruction. Most are just basically using incineration, which is on the edge of saying, right now it's likely not destroying the PFAS, right? It is just, yes, yes. So there's a wide range of other technologies involving plasma, supercritical water oxidation. It's all very academic at this point, but that is the $1 million question. And the Northwestern study was a really great breakthrough. So what they found were some solvents that you could put together, but this was PFAS in its true concentrated form, not in a wastewater matrices. But that process they found only worked on one family of acids. So the 24 that we normally talk about, it only destroys 10 of them. They have to find a way for each unique PFAS type, and there are thousands of them out there. So it's just going to be a very long process.
is there any, maybe it's too early. It seems like there's a lot of money being thrown at green everything right now, at green energy, water treatment. Does anyone know if there's money available to do this kind of, especially since we sort of are at the front of this, money that doesn't have to come out of Loudon Water's budget? I'm not worried about $305,000, by the way. I'm not.
Right.
But, if we start having to spend on the landfill and treatment and God knows what that's going to be, do we know if there's?
Yes, so I think we're seeing federal dollars go to PFAS infrastructure. It will be highly competitive and go to the largest sources first at this point. But I think nationwide, they're realizing that there's going to need to be a lot of funding devoted to this.
Thank you.
Does that mean
Yeah,
going to
so-
PFAS infrastructure? Does that mean going to the source? Companies that use PFAS in their products and so forth, to get them to,
Not that I know of.
Cut
I'm
down
pretty
to
sure
the-
everybody's looking at those guys on the, how are they going to pay for it?
I mean, it's just gonna keep coming, and there seems
But
to be no,
most of what I'm aware of is for water infrastructure. in
just the
specific.
water. Nothing at the source to kind of get manufacturers to switch to a different technology or different type.
That's more federal regulation.
Yeah, that's at the
based.
federal level, yeah. Otherwise, it's gonna keep coming.
Jim
Yeah.
had a question.
So my question, well, I'm turning away from my mics to look at you, but the question, and you mentioned this in other places I've read it, is that there are literally thousands of these different compounds, 24 different families, but the testing has only showed that 2 of them have effects, and it's based upon the vaccine for tetanus. That is the only effect that they've seen from PFAS in the environment.
That is
No?
not
Okay.
the only effect. So this is the effect that they have data on
Data-
and related to human health. So there are other effects, I am sure, by PFAS, but they don't have enough data to say this is the human health effect, and so we can therefore set a limit. So often these tests are done by what data is available. And so EPA had data on these 4, so they published it. There is going to continually be data come out on these. Odds are over time, we'll get more data on the 4, but my understanding is EPA's approach was whatever data came out first and was most conclusive, this is what we are moving forward with. And that's what we got for the 4 health advisories we have right now. 2 of them are still technically called interim because they are waiting on additional data. And I also believe they tried to go with the most restrictive data that they have.
Okay, so that means that's, we need to move on this. Yeah, there's no question that we need to move. And right now we're just talking about testing and then we have to go to the next steps. Got it. Thank you.
I just had a quick question. I'm going to reiterate what I said because last time the other board members were not here. 2 concerns I have, right? And you're not going to be able to obviously answer that, but I still want to pose that, on the table today so everybody can think about it. One is that we talked, and you mentioned the health advisory, right? And I had posed this question, what kind of a health, advisory concern are we looking at, right? Is it cancerous? Is it like any, ill treatments, right? I mean, pre-existing, ill, health causing concerns. One was that. The other one was that we can't just eradicate that, right? We're looking at, you're providing this particular presentation today for the purpose of it to mitigate that. We can't eradicate that, right? So we talked about public awareness and coming back to, taking the example of Chick-fil-A and their wrappers, right? Making it public awareness, right? Because on the board, as an organization, we can only do so much, right? But the bottom line is that we want to be able to be part of the eradication. Otherwise, we're just going to keep putting more cost into this. And then, there's other priority projects that we may have, right? We're not going to be able to put, the money where it's supposed to be. So that's just on my mind. And I just wanted to just say that. That's all.
I'll add to that. Chick-fil-A in particular, because I was looking up a bunch of companies and all of this, Chick-fil-A has said, I forget the date, but within the next 6 months or something like this, they're phasing out all of their wrappers and, containers. Well, they just said have no PFAS, because I'm so skeptical. You look at the aluminum foil, you look at this, you look at that, it's PFAS on all of it, so all I know is they said, hey, it's PFAS, have no PFAS in it, not short chain, not long chain, not this, not that. Because some of the outdoor, like rain jackets, Arc'teryx or Helly Hansen or others, they've gone, well, we're not, like Arc'teryx said, well, fine, we're doing away with the long chain PFAS, but we're doing short chain PFAS. Okay, Helly Hansen says, no, we're going to merino wool. It's high tech, it's natural, it's all this stuff. But what is interesting to me is that there are a bunch of companies that have been listening and hearing this, and some of them are following through and saying, we're going to get this out of our supply chain. Not all of them are. Arc'teryx in particular said, our commitment to a certain type of durable product that can resist weather is stronger. We recognize the environmental issue, but they said, we just can't develop a jacket that's up to our standards and not have it have PFAS. And that's what they said. Okay, fine. If you don't like it, don't buy it. And at least it's there. At least the statement's there. They're acknowledging it. And they're acknowledging that it's an environmental problem. Okay. And then there's other companies that are going, no, we're just getting rid of it altogether. But to your point, Angeline and Kendra, you had said it before, which is, hey, let's go march on Washington. And I said, yeah, I'll do that with you. But you're right, where you go, you spend all this time trying to remove it, and that's still appropriate, but we have to get it out. But it's in so many things, and this is what feels daunting. Understood. Agreed. No doubt about that. But as we look long-term, you say clearly the long-term solution is for the world, not even just the US, but to stop making things with this stuff. Clearly that's the right thing. It's a daunting thing because it's in so many products, but it's still the right thing to do. And so to the extent that we can use our platform as a water authority to encourage companies, manufacturers to come up with alternative things, I think that's great. And I think we should consider that as well.
Well, where there's a will, there's a way. That's why Kendra is here, because she has a will and there's a way. So, just acknowledging what you said, right? And then through you, thank you so much. Thank you to both of you, because I don't go to Chick-fil-A anymore. Like, I don't. I love Chick-fil-A. I don't go. I mean, I'm a public first, I'm a board member second. So I don't go, right? Because we talked about it last time, right? We, the public has the power, of the purchase, right? If we don't purchase, it's supply and demand gets affected, and that's just the first step towards it, right? So,
Mhm.
yeah, truth be told. So, yeah.
Okay. Is that we have more? Is there another slide?
Just the motion.
Okay. All right.
I'll make a motion. Again, I'm going to read it. I know sometimes we just go, I make a motion, but for those of us that are virtual or remote or on the phone or what have you, I'm just going to read it. It says, I move the board approve a task order for professional services for the Broad Run Water Reclamation Facility landfill leachate pretreatment study with CDM Smith for an estimated cost of $305,800 with an approximate 5% contingency to be controlled by the general manager for a total authorized budget of $321,100. Additional costs will require board approval.
Anyone want to
second that.
Mr. Bonfield, second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Did Mr. Kobelos vote?
He did, he's voting
Okay.
visually.
All right.
So we have to look at the
Kendra.
little picture in the corner, right?
Yes.
with his hand up.
Kendra, thank you once again. You've spent a lot of time on this. And it sounds like you're going to be spending a lot more time on it. So,
I am already getting requests to speak on this study and it hasn't even started yet, right?
So
So there's lots even outside our organization.
thank you.
about this.
So we approved it.
Good job.
Okay, there's nothing under new business. We have one information item, an update on phase 3. Kendra, you're up again.
All right. So I wanted to start with just a general reminder of the phase 3 program. So we started talking about this at the wastewater workshop last year, and we had some main goals. The number one goal of this project was to increase treatment capacity of Broad Run. It's still requiring more capacity online, but there are a lot of challenges with that simple statement. Developing infrastructure of this magnitude, it is a huge effort on the consultant's behalf, on Loudon Water's behalf, on construction and contractors. And we're at a point of continual design and construction at Broad Run. So we really established that we need to build ahead of direct capacity requirements. But as we've talked about as well with our waste load allocation that we have been given, when Broad Run was first constructed, this is really setting a very advanced level of treatment for us. So not only do we need to build that treatment capacity, but we need to achieve cutting edge levels of operation, not only out of the necessity of the regulation, but as we really establish here together these levels of expectations of treatment that Loudon Water has, right? Talking about PFAS and getting out ahead. So all of this together means that we are balancing complexity, uncertainty, but keeping an eye on our main objective, that is to get treatment capacity online. So in October of last year, we were here and requested the approval of the overall phase 3 program to Hazen and Sawyer. So we put out an RFP and did a specific selection for a consultant to take us through this entire phase 3 journey. But with that was the assignment of our initial planning contract. And so before we could decide what we were going to build, we needed to say, well, how big does the facility need to be and what technologies are the right decision? So today we're going to talk about the results of that and then what that means overall for the CIP planning for phase 3. So we wanted to talk about this project in specific before the overall CIP came out, because this is going to result into a large change to the 10-year plan, and we didn't want it to have to go through it all at once. So increment of expansion was a big focus of the last year for us. And I mentioned, that we've been under the continual planning, design, and construction here, but initial thoughts and piloting for Broad Run started in 2000. And by 2008, it was constructed and online. We had a brief period between 2008 and 2014 where we just operated the facility, but then we jumped right into master planning, designing an intermediate biosolids project, and we did the phase 2 expansion. And now we're back with phase 3, and we're really at the point where we want to set a long-term goal. We want to build capacity for beyond 2040 so that we can get the infrastructure online and have the ability to focus on optimization of the processes and these new technologies that are going to be required to meet regulations. So original phase 1 construction was 10 MGD. So when we did the master plan and did the phase 2, we said we want to be very explicit. We want to take a 5 MGD increment here because there was a key technology consideration. A new biosolids sludge processing had come out called thermal hydrolysis that we needed to evaluate if it could work for Broad Run. A lot of benefits to this technology. It reduces footprint, it increases biogas, but there were risks associated. We piloted that over the last year, and the results of that pilot did show that that technology would recreate a recycle stream that would violate Broad Run's effluent permit. So again, a cutting edge pilot that everybody was very excited to see the results of, and what we demonstrated is facilities that have advanced effluent limits like we do are unable to incorporate this specific technology. So that small pause there, so we could evaluate it, really allowed us to move forward confidently. So now we know what solids technology is correct. So we're ready to take a bigger 15 MGD increment and build to get to a total capacity at Broad Run of 30 MGD. So when looking at the drivers for capacity, there were many, many things to evaluate. So we did look at long-term development of the county, but we also have increasing wastewater concentrations due to water conservation throughout. We've already seen over the last 10 years that even the same flow is getting stronger, which counts as capacity needed. We've got increasing wet weather due to the more extreme climate change going on. And then we've also seen the JLMA as an example of changes in county planning where extra capacity that we're going to call buffer is absolutely required because of the long durations required to get complex infrastructure online. Another interesting way to look at this, though, is at Loudoun Water as a whole. In terms of water treatment and water that we can deliver, we currently have 70 MGD of capacity if you take Trap Rock and add on what we purchased from Fairfax Water. If we look at this on the wastewater side, currently we have 10 MGD at Broad Run and our 13.8 in the PI. The phase 2 expansion is really only getting that to a total of about 30 MGD. So another 15 is getting us much closer to 45. So just on average, we generate about 80% of the water we supply as wastewater. So we have a pretty large deficiency overall in saying that we could actually treat the wastewater for the water that we could supply. So this is also an important investment to get the two sides of our infrastructure at the same capacity and making sure that we're prepared for providing for the future. Another way that we analyzed this was looking at that buffer capacity. So how much capacity does a wastewater treatment plant need to deal with uncertainty? Because we can't control what's coming down the sewer, we treat it as it comes. And so we've lined Broad Run up here, and what you see is at the end of phase 2, total wastewater capacity is in green that we could treat, that 30. But by the time we're finished, we will probably generate about 23 MGD. So that means we have 21% buffer capacity at the end of that expansion. When we compare that to neighboring utilities, we have the smallest margin of any wastewater treatment plant online in our area, and really the highest potential for variation because we're one of the fastest growing counties. So we also wanted to compare this to what it looks like with the 30 MGD increment. So in 15 years, when we finish this great expansion, we estimate we'll be generating about 30 MGD of wastewater. That really only puts our buffer capacity at about 34%. So many of these other larger utilities at the lower end, they're currently working on expansion. So we feel it's still very prudent. We're not moving too far ahead of capacity compared to demand. It's actually putting us more in line with our peer utilities of ensuring we have buffer capacity available.
I have a question. So the permitted design flow, so what is that?
So when we build a facility, we tell the Department of Environmental Quality what the average annual design flow is. And they say, okay, this is the flow you're allowed to treat there. If we wanted to put more flow through that facility, we would have to prove to them that it could treat sufficiently, and they would need to issue another permit. That's the state's way of saying you can't take a small plant and try to run as much flow through it as you want. You have to keep it within normal operating parameters.
So this is just an idea that just emerged in my mind. So can we not partner like with Henrico or Henrico County, which is Hanover County in Richmond? Can we, like, for example, can we not partner with, and Carla, this is for you too, obviously, I don't want to leave you out because you're a general manager. Can we not like partner with other counties, like for example, Henrico with Hanover County, like Richmond, for our PFAS and other types of plans that we have? Have we reached out to other counties and gotten their thought on that, or?
Well, this is the wastewater generated
Yeah.
in Loudoun County.
Right.
So there really wouldn't be any benefit to
Okay,
So what we want to do in the county, and that's quite honestly our obligation to do that as well,
okay,
from the county. But the permit is individual to each
okay,
plant.
got it. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Mhm.
Thanks so much. I mean, I just, if I don't know, I just ask, because it's part of my
Absolutely.
decision making, so, thank you.
Thank you.
And we don't have a land issue, right? We don't have any land issue with expansion at Broad Run. We have excess land, right?
Well,
Well,
we have
we
just
won't go
enough.
that
I
far.
would not call
Not
it
that far.
Yes. I'm gonna arms out and say the land's all ours. It's not anybody else's. Yeah.
I guess that's one of the reasons we said no to that.
Yeah.
We're about to show you what we've been saying. We're
Thank
going
you.
to show you how
Okay,
it's all
thank
laid
you.
out.
Thank you. Forget it.
Kendra, real quick,
Okay.
on that previous slide, end of phase 3, that's based on estimated demand. I'm just curious as to, because I'm sure that's projected. Is
It
there any
is.
concern that with the growth in the county that it may be higher and there's going to be less of a buffer?
This is the challenge that we all have in wastewater. And so what we do is we look at like 50 different scenarios, and then we pick the most conservative one and the least conservative one, and we window those. But I just want to say that that is not the aggressive projection. That is the least aggressive projection. Just trying to make sure we're being fiscally responsible, because there's a lot of uncertainty that can occur on the other side. But we are constantly trying to balance that.
Okay.
And yeah, it's like the great challenge of wastewater.
Yeah, because I was say that would be the concern is just because of the growth. And I'm sure you have models that are trying to factor this in, but that's, we're basing it on, if you're basing it on that, then you're right. It could be even, a scenario could be worse than what we're looking at.
Mr. Kelly?
Kendra, thank you. Are we getting any pressure or pushback from Blue Plains to treat more? Are they worried about their capacity as we continue to grow?
Not treat more. They look to us whenever they want to do something on the PI and saying, well, can you guys bypass flow or something like that? We have looked to them because treatment is so much more cost effective at their facility than ours, asking for more capacity. That has not come to fruition, but we do not stop asking. Any 5 MGD we could get, we would take it from them. And we partner with Fairfax County on that. They would like more capacity. So we are kind of keeping the heat on them that if we could ever get more down there, we could.
And I'll add a comment too. I noticed Alexandria is not on this slide here.
Yeah, they are Alex Renew.
Oh, are they? Okay.
Yeah.
But, or like say Hamilton, where I used to live, if you don't have adequate capacity, when you get that big rain event, sewage overflows your facility and it's just running into the streams. And so it's a very real thing to make sure that you've got a buffer there. Nobody can predict future development 10, 20, 30, 40 years from now. We don't know. And it takes so long to get all these things in motion, but you have to have a healthy buffer so that you're not like Alexandria has been, where you get a big rain event and it's just sewage into the Potomac. Yeah, and so many towns, so many cities are in that position. It's not just, I'm not just picking on them, But it's just because of this type of, and it's very helpful. It's a great graph that you put together, but.
I wanted to mention, I think a great success story worth saying at a high level is, the phase 2 expansion and the planning that preceded that really set us up for success with the county's decision in the JLMA. What little buffer we did create, we were able to readily accommodate that new development area into our system. So it's just proof positive that the planning is working and working well.
Oh, that's great. Good point.
So this is what it looks like to take Broad Run from phase 2 will really continue to build in the existing footprint of the facility. So for phase 3, we will essentially be doubling that land area. So filling up, this is our I know, but that is reserved for a slide that I don't have in here. It might be in the bullpen, but ultimate build out for Broad Run was thought to be 40 MGD. So that's what this road is this would be more BRBs and membranes to get us out to 40. For us to treat to 40, if we do not get more waste load allocation, we then have to have a reverse osmosis facility that sits up here. So this is where I'm saying arms out. If we do not get regulatory relief, we will essentially become a drinking water treatment plant on the end of Broad Run. Now, there may reach a time where we don't have a choice. This plant has to process wastewater and it has to go out. So it's in our long-term plan and it must be there. We will continue to push for some regulatory relief on that, but that really is our advanced tertiary process. Or if Loudoun County and Northern Virginia ever experiences a drought at the level that we saw in the 1960s, our modeling that Pam's group has shown that, the Potomac may not have enough water. If drought really forces us to look at water reuse, that is also our potential land for reusing Broad Run effluent as a drinking water source. So that could happen faster than we all like to think in that.
Kendra, the previous thing where you had said we had the 70 gallons or 70 million gallons of water, and then you're saying max 40. Is the 30 potentially being made up at Blue Plains? Is that the idea?
No, that would, I believe the long-term plan was once Broad Run hit 40, we would need to look for another place to build a wastewater treatment plant.
I think.
You're saying the number and the slide added up to 43.8.
Well, I think Kendra said that we would have the capacity in the future to produce 70 million gallons per day of potable water. And so unless, everybody's going to be irrigating and filling their pools, that it makes sense that if you're producing that amount of water, you want to be able to have the capacity to treat that amount of water.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we're not even like 80, 90, I mean, we're so far from that, even at a 40 MGD. And so that's why I'm.
Yeah, I think it was like, what was the 80% of 70, 56, something like that?
And I think when you take a look at this in the Fairfax supply bar, I think it could be said that when we've had to make purchases of capacity from the wholesale perspective, we've had to buy larger increments in those situations. And so we've well developed the potable system well out into the future, and then TRAP offers this flexibility service westward of the facility of our main central service area. So some of those factors play into the difference in the bars here.
Which is great. And obviously we've got like Paonian Springs and things of that nature, which it's very reasonable to think that there'll be more of those things in the coming decades. And so you go, good, we've got ample water supply, but we need sewage capacity to match. And if I'm hearing Broad Run's got a max of 40, there's a big delta there. And I go, hey, where's that?
Gonna like it in wastewater treatment.
Is it too early to begin discussing what do we do with that?
Well, what I'm going to say is when we took a look at the central service area as it exists right now, population density would have to be drastically different than what we see is reasonable. So the need to do that would incorporate a move into Western Loudoun, which I would think at that time you would look at where could you position a new wastewater treatment plant. Also because it would not be cost effective to move that water. The western part of our service area all wants to flow the other direction right now, and we are pumping it back. So it just starts to make more sense at that point.
Well, it's obviously not a pressing thing at the moment, but much like the land that was bought next to River Creek all those years ago for that pump station, way in advance of ever needing it. This is one of those things that's big enough and a difficult enough problem. It seems like maybe it's appropriate for some discrete discussions around that.
What is for Potomac Interceptor, what is the capacity on an MGD basis? Is it 10?
For Loudon Water?
Yeah.
It's 13.8 on an average basis, but interceptors go by their peak conveyance. So that's 31.9 MGD that we can contribute to that on a peak basis.
Okay.
So we did our technology screening in addition to the increment, and what that really showed. So we had a technical advisory committee get together. So in addition to our consultant, we had other utility and academic leaders looking at all the state-of-the-art technologies, and Broad Run is still pretty much it. So the plan on the liquid side is to continue with BRBs, membranes, and granular activated carbon. Now, there are better things we can do inside these tanks. So we will be moving forward and really optimizing how we construct the new processes. A major change for us is on the biosolids side, and that is moving to thermal drying of the solids. So right now we digest them and then we dewater them. So this next step would follow digestion, and you put it in a dryer and produce a pellet. So it reduces the volume of biosolids produced, which is great. We will pay less to haul that material. The material is also better for the land appliers. It's in a nice pellet shape. It can be spread by the same thing they're using for fertilizer. So it's a much more attractive product for them, and is the first step required to go to advanced biosolids processing to go to PFAS destruction. So a pyrolysis would hopefully destroy PFAS. So I say hopefully because the pilot is going on right now, and hopefully we will see data come back from Schenectady, New York, showing that PFAS was actually destroyed. And so we are saving space, and this is our new biosolids facility. This green box is where we're reserving the space if a pyrolysis facility was considered. So as part of this work, we are going to be studying that further, coming up with how much do we think this will cost? What's it going to take to operate? This is not a process that really any utility is familiar with at this point. We are also reserving here a more advanced nutrient removal technology. This would be ozone, biologically active filters, really similar to what they have out at TRAP. Yeah, that we think would help us further reduce nutrients. I say we think because it's not normally done for low nitrogen and phosphorus removal. It's done for carbon removal and other things. So we will have some piloting dollars to make sure that that's the right thing. But if we can get that to work, it's going to save us money over the reverse osmosis that we would have to do instead. So what you see in blue is what we plan to construct. So many of our systems can still be expanded. So we'll have a small contract to come over here and continue expanding some. Most of it will be new greenfield construction over in the open areas. All of this is currently estimated to cost about $650 million. So this is our program budget right now. This includes both engineering, design, construction services, and the construction fee. But at this point, we're recommending this because it is critical for the operation of the utility to make sure that we have the infrastructure needed and to prepare us for pending regulations.
How do you feel about that, Brian?
You didn't see something in the 5-year plan.
That's a lot of money.
I just wanted to see all the board members' faces. Like, that's what I was interested in. I saw them.
So-
Panic, despair, grief.
All look flushed out,
Yeah.
like from where I see you.
I don't have that many zeros on my calculator.
Yeah, I can't.
Looking forward to coming in because I
Divided
knew
by
that's
15
the
In
years.
Bill's
$150
world, that's
million.
just peanuts.
I wanted to see all my male board members' faces.
It's only
I
40,
knew it was a flush
it's only
out.
40 million a year.
No big deal. It's no big deal. Ask the bank.
40 million a
That's
year.
all. Yeah,
No interest.
We started calculating,
yeah, no big deal. Yeah.
All right.
especially Bill. I wanted to see what you had to say
I
about
know.
it.
Yeah.
So this will definitely be the largest capital undertaking that Loudon Water really has had to date in terms of the overall program. But you're absolutely right, it's over 15 years. But we wanted to talk a little bit about the number and how it's being generated right now. So this is a high level parametric cost. We're using past costs from Broad Run and other facilities and escalating them to come up with a budget. For design and construction, we're just saying construction services, just the 10% factor. We will come to the board with actual, negotiated contract values, actual construction values, and we just wanted to acknowledge that we understand these numbers are very big and we're preparing to bring the justification on a project by project basis. And so I will be back at the October CIP talking to you all about the first contract, but with that, we will bring some phasing so that you can see the contract phasing, because this won't all be built at one time. It needs to occur in a couple of steps. But at this point, I wanted to turn it over to Carla because we have talked a lot internally about what this means financially.
Thanks, Kendra. I'm going to handle this slide since I handled it at the CIP meeting, but really what this is showing you is that this project, despite the price tag of it, we have been collecting monies for this expansion through our availability charge. I will say probably not to this escalated cost, and that's something that Brian and I will be working on, but this is all new related to new growth. So this will be funded by the availability charges, hopefully with no impact to the user rates unless we are borrowing the funds to do that. This also will have a big impact on the 5-year plan, but again, keep in mind it's 15 years, over a 15-year period. So when we come back to the joint meeting with the CIP and the capital spending plan in November, we're going to have a little preview of what that could do to our 5-year plan, what we're looking at as far as borrowing. But, again, this is the largest project that we've undertaken because we're looking at it, again, as one project over 15 years. And so by going this route, we are pulling forward some of those costs, and that will have an impact on the 5-year plan and what we're doing going forward. So I fully anticipate there is probably a borrowing, a larger borrowing than what we've been talking about, just due to the fact that we're making some changes here. But again, we'll sort of preview that at the joint meeting, and then we'll take it from there and see what happens. But yeah, it's a big price tag, but it's not something that's it's not surprising. This is what we've been planning.
Divided by 15 is 43 million a year, and what were the availability charges for last year? 25 million, something like that?
In total,
Yeah.
like 56
56?
million, yeah.
So.
So we could just defer all the
Feel
other
a little better now.
That's right. That's right.
Just pay for this.
That will not make me popular.
Yeah, well, that's going to slow down, so.
Carla, I know you said that our availability fee has contemplated some of these improvements, but not a full 650 million. What do we anticipate? Understanding it's very fuzzy right now, but if we're trying to keep user rates roughly the same, maybe there's a little increase, something along these lines. How about availability fees? Would we see a big change there, or do we have any sense?
This is really just my sort of gut reaction
Yeah.
is that I think we will have a significant increase in availability charges, meaning more than we've seen in the past, where
Mhm.
they were I mean, we have now inflation thrown into
Mhm,
this, right? And we update pipe costs to reflect what's going on today, which is crazy, So I think all of that converging together with updated costs on the projects that we're working on,
Mhm.
I anticipate it's going to be significant.
But didn't we just pass is it a 3-year rate increase?
We
for
did.
availability?
Yes.
3%
We
a
did.
year, or was
And
it 2?
It's 2%. I believe it was 2%.
It's
3%.
3%
3%.
for
Yeah.
3 years. The first year is this year, so
Right.
there's 2 more.
So we can't
3%.
do anything for,
Well, it's not that you can't, but what Brian and I have talked about, just again, very preliminary, because we have not run the numbers, is, it would certainly be more of a phased in kind of thing. We would never propose that we just take a big hit. But it's all part of the plan and see how the revenues play out. But it's something that we're working on, so I didn't want you to think that we weren't aware of that. But I guess the concept I was trying to get across is as soon as a project is identified in our master planning efforts, it goes into the availability charge. And so our availability charge is not a cost recovery mechanism. It really is meant to reflect a customer's share of the capital. And so this is in there. It's just probably not reflecting quite this magnitude. So it's not like we're going to add 650 million in. We just have to figure out the delta there and figure out how it would place out.
What's been our placeholder currently? We've been anticipating like 500 million or something along these lines, or?
I think that's actually about right. I think
Okay.
500
So
million.
we got about 5, but then we're thinking, it's probably more like 650, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got a 150 delta there.
Right.
And,
Right.
and so if that's the case, then, it seems like to the extent that we can, it would be the right thing to try to increase our availability fees sooner rather than later, and to do so in smaller increments so that we don't
Absolutely.
repeat whatever we did 10 years ago and so forth. It seems like so many utilities do that, though. They wait until the end and then, hey, it's doubled or whatever.
Yeah, and again, ours is a bit unique in that it's not a cost recovery. So we do know that since the beginning of this planning or this thought process or master planning, we have been collecting something for this. And so what Brian and I also do at the end of the year is we really do sort of we have a cash balance. We have a healthy cash balance. How much of that is really associated with our user rates and how much really belongs to the availability charges? And that helps us kind of gauge too, as we project out these expenses, are we on track to, the goal is that by build out, all of our capital has been paid for, right? So that's another part of the exercise, but yeah, it's not dire in that, again, not 650 million going in there because I don't think I could do that, but it's the delta. And again, this inflationary piece is just playing a huge role too. And it's just, we have to do something with that. So
and how much more land is there available for new data centers? I mean, that's the other thing. It's not going to go on forever,
It's counting.
yeah.
you know? You can't make more land.
Well, thank you. I think that's,
Yeah, thanks for.
yeah, it is. It's very helpful.
Yeah, I was, looking at countering in us with the contributing factors that you talked about, inflation always, right? But you addressed that. I mean, and it's not in our control, right? Inflation increases, Fed funds, it's out of our control. So, but yeah, thank you for answering that. I appreciate
But
it.
it's really important that everybody realizes we're talking about 15 years out.
Yeah.
While we're sitting here, this is, so many organizations wait until they get within that 6-year or 5-year, not pointing at the county, window before they really get serious about their CIP. This is very important.
And an interesting factor too, during COVID, nobody could get a personal computer. I mean, they were just sold out everywhere. Everybody's buying laptops and desktops. Now, sales have just plummeted. Everybody bought their computer. They're like, I just bought one last year, 2 years ago. I don't need one anymore. And so it's lumber, same thing. Lumber has tanked, Yeah, it's huge. But, you know, last year it was like, oh man, lumber's to the roof, you know, all the product. And so the same will happen with pipe. The same will happen with all these things. It'll come back down. Right now, some of these things are through the roof, but like you said, it's a fifth, this is way out there. So hopefully there'll be some equilibrium restored here. Yeah.
Hopefully.
Prefer not to borrow money next year, that we can avoid floating a bond.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
God knows what AAA rate.
Agreed.
All right.
Okay.
That's-
All I had was just a schedule really showing that we're here because of the CIP updates. This is going to be a significant change to the CIP, but we're also negotiating these first contracts to keep the design moving, and we are on track to be back at the October CIP with the first one, and we'll talk more about the staging approach in that presentation.
Great. Thank you. That's a great presentation.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Monthly reports. Does anyone have any questions for Sally? Is Sally here? Hey, Sally. Does anyone have any questions on the monthly financial reports? Okay. Water resource. Does anyone have any questions for Jessica? Water and sewer for Huey? Capital construction for Rick. I assume everyone's
This
read
is
these
where the board's
reports.
really missing Hobie. You know,
No.
Hobie, hey,
Yeah.
this pipe here, why did you put that there?
And then the final one is the capital spending report from Tom. I had one question. You gotta have one. So it looks like, can't remember the number on the report. Is Tom here or is he online?
I can probably speak for
Okay.
Tom. I think he's
In
absent
the
today.
expenditures report, it looks like we're 25% of our expenditures are deferred or delayed. Is that typical? I mean, is this something that's inherent now because of it takes so long to get things done?
Yeah, and actually, I want to give the credit to Tom because he actually dissected this a little further so that we could answer sort of this very question. And a good chunk of those delays have been, you know, things outside of our control, like supply chain, contractor delays, county delay in moving projects forward. That really, he had prepared a nice listing of, you know, really the top projects that were contributing to that variance. And by and large, that's what the majority of them were.
Okay, yeah, because it's amazing how much a percentage it is of our total expenditures. Is it abating? Is it getting worse? Is it kind of staying the same?
It's getting there. It's just still touch and go.
Okay.
Yeah. Probably a
all
good,
the, all the extra interest we're earning on that unspent money though.
Mm. yeah.
You just go buy 2-year notes for 4%, 4.6% for 2-year
I know, in that
treasuries.
sense, we're losing even more money. That's the real truth.
All right.
Unbelievable.
Okay, that's the monthly reports. Does anybody else have any questions?
Yeah, I have a question. I hate to go back to PFAS for a minute. We keep mentioning chicken fillet and maybe some other organizations. Are we getting into a legal problem if let's say Chick-fil-A has a big decrease in business caused by us talking about PFAS? Can they come back on us and say, hey, you, especially considering where our knowledge of PFAS is at the present time? Just a thought.
Are you talking about like a defamation suit or something like that?
Well, to have them sue Loud and Water because what we say about PFAS in their wrapping.
Yeah.
Angeline doesn't go to Chick-fil-A anymore and their business suffers.
Yeah, and that would be defamation, and everybody's talking about Chick-fil-A, and truth is an absolute defense to any kind of defamation suit. So based on the information that we have, you know, I think it's, there's not really no
problem.
case there, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and Marty, I'd say, I mean, you can go to Chick-fil-A's own website and they've got an entire page to PFAS. So they're
Do they
not,
really?
yeah, they're not, it's not like they're saying, they're not disagreeing that there's been, and all of the, it's not just Chick-fil-A, it's Burger King, it's McDonald's, it's the whole.
I only go to higher level.
Okay. Yeah, but
Okay.
And Chick-fil-A in particular agrees. I mean, they're one of the only fast foods that I know of that is committed to removing PFAS out of the containers that are holding the fries and the sandwiches and
But they
stuff.
actually talk about it.
It's on their website. You can see it. They've got a date in there and so forth. I'm not aware of McDonald's or Burger King doing that.
All right.
But yeah, so no, it's fair game in the sense that it's real. It's not defamation in that we're making up something. It's real and
I
they've
just thought
acknowledged it.
because of our knowledge is limited, are we being premature mentioning them?
No.
But we do have a cited source for that data, which we followed up on, make sure that we understood what test method they used. So we absolutely have been trying to really use sound data. It's tough right now, but we checked it out the best we could.
Bring it on, Marty, bring it on.
And
All right,
I,
thanks.
Amanda, I'm not gonna take your place, but I hope you agree with me because you're in legal and I'm in policy, right? So it's kind of like, we meet together. So that was a great answer. And when you know that, you're going on the track side of the defamation, right? But when you go in your defense, you accept, the facts, right? Then, the case of defamation becomes a very weak one at that point, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
For this, there's no defamation.
There's no defamation because you accepted in your defense. I accepted the fact, the truth. I'm doing something about it. Yeah,
Owning it and.
they're owning it, exactly, right? And that would go for our organization too. If we find out something here on the board, if we go and follow that trajectory, based on your expertise, obviously, in your council, then, there's no case for defamation, really.
Agreed.
Mr. Vice Chair, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead. Somebody saying,
Do we have a closed? We don't have anything closed session. Do we? Okay.
one other
Before we
question.
adjourn, one last.
Yeah,
go ahead.
before
One last-
he just,
This is it.
yeah. No, well, as we've been talking about short-term action on PFAS, understanding it's a very large, long-term issue. Obviously, the leachate is a great thing to be tackling because it's a concentrated source. And that's what we're doing. And that's what we did today, was to further that. And I think that's great. One other thing was sort of the public campaign side, which is if I'm just a member of the public and I go, how can I reduce my exposure to PFAS? I don't know. Could we not put something out to say, here's some low hanging fruit, understanding that it's a very complex thing. It's thousands of compounds. It's in all these things, but here's some here's like some major ones that you could do. We've done this for other things in the past that are environmentally sensitive or things like this. How can you reduce your water consumption, for instance, or things like this? I'm wondering, is it appropriate? Is it something that we could do for the public here in Loudoun County? And since we're a leader, not just here in the county, but also nationally, could that be something that we could also do to just, again, to just help say, here's how you could reduce your exposure. Here's some ideas.
I think that that's a bit out of our lane in that we do have information on our webpage about PFAS directly related to our mission and what we do. I think we would be, again, sort of stepping out of our lane to get into the sources, if you will. I mean, our focus has to remain on how we get these things out of the water. That's probably in someone else's purview to really step up and do that.
Have the industry do as opposed to,
And
that's possible.
And the industry is doing that. So NAQA is for wastewater. They work directly with Congress, trying to look at solutions at the source and product bans and also getting information to consumers. So national associations this is very much a priority for them.
And I think that's what we've tried to do and what we've linked on our webpage is really lean on those sources because they do have the published information that gets into that realm of what you're describing, where you can, limit your impact personally or be more aware, situationally aware of how you may be coming into contact with these materials and so forth. So,
and we're very active in all of those
Yeah.
associations. So we are part of that and part of that regional effort.
Along those same lines, though, what about advertising the study that we're about to undertake? Is that something that's being considered? on the Loudon Water website. I would think that would be public interest to know
Yeah,
what
Loudon Water takes the lead on PFAS research or something.
Well,
the study that.
I think we want to be careful putting ourselves out there with the potential to generate questions for which we have no answers. And that's why we've tried to just stay in line with, the industry and our partners and the regulatory agencies and what they know and point towards them. That's just my own off the top of my head, like, oh boy, I hope nobody calls us and asks us,
I agree. I think that's a good approach. That's the right.
Look at this, this is
If
a
you
great
go
topic, I
to,
think, for,
I'm sorry.
we're getting in the weeds. We're getting in the weeds a little bit. Does anybody else have anything before we
I just,
adjourn?
one last thought on that was if you go to Chick-fil-A's 4-sentence statement on their website, it's very small and concise that they're dedicated to dealing with the issue. And that's really all that needs to be said
Okay,
at this time, I think.
great.
That should put you to rest, Marty.
I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
No, I
Motion.
need-
You want a motion?
You got
I
it.
make a motion to
Make a-
adjourn.
Make a motion.
I'll do second.
Do you have a question, Chairman Koblenz?
He just wants the meeting to be over.
No? All right. Motion is, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
I can read body language from here, Mark.